I can't wait for the next vote. Hopefully, Ben gets voted out of there, and I don't care who goes in after him, but it's got to be better than what he's been running the FIA like.
I need Susie Wolf in that spot.
I would love Susie
I
Wolf in
need
that
Susie
spot.
Wolf to be the new president
Absolutely.
so badly, bro.
Susie, if you hear this, if you ever watch this, we need you.
Yeah, you got to vote here.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Around the Circuit, Apollo Media's Formula One podcast. As always, I'm Junior, joined by Mark and Ivan, here to talk wheel with y'all. The Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, we just had it. The boys raced in Jeddah, and it was an eventful race, at least to say the least. It's a fast track, super quick. It was only 50 laps. I think the whole race, including the safety car, was about an hour and a half, which is actually pretty quick for a F1 race. It's one of the fastest tracks on the calendar that we will see. Fastest in time and fastest in speed. Yeah. I mean, the boys, they had a lot of quick, I think it was 27 turns, but half of them are like full speed turns, if not more than half. Yeah, it was a fast race. And most of the action took place in the first turn and the first lap. Oscar took another win. He's the only multi-win driver we have so far this season. He's won 3. He won back-to-back. The triple header was good to Oscar. Max took P2. Granted, there was some controversy that we'll talk about here in a little bit. Yeah. And then Charles Leclerc brought home Ferrari's first podium. Finally. Got them their first podium. He didn't look bad. He looked good. We know Charles is a good driver, and Jeddah is a driver's track. I know people who watched the race probably heard the commentator say that a lot. It is a very big driver's track. Drivers are going to make a difference in a track like Jeddah, and we saw that. Starting with qualifying, I mean, it's a street circuit, so the turns are and the corners are sharp. They're tight. There's not a lot of room for error, and Lando Norris proved that. I think it was Q3. Yeah, start of Q3, he went into his first banker lap, put it into the wall, just took a little too much curb, and as soon as I grabbed it, it shot that rocket into the wall, brought out the red flag, and then Max Verstappen things and brought home pole.
One of the best Q3s of the season, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Livid.
Was it 0.01 and 0.10? Or the splits between like Oscar and Max for their 2 runs. Yeah, it was insane.
It was just driver's track. I mean, you push that car to the limit. You trust it. You trust yourself as a driver. And we saw what Max could do. George Russell did not look bad in qualifying. And then the McLarens, they were fastest pretty much all weekend leading up to qualifying. Yeah. And even then, like, Max barely beat out Oscar. So even in qualifying, they were one of the fastest. Practice, they were the fastest. And then, obviously, the race, they were still the fastest. Could it have gone another way? I don't know. So, before we get into the controversy, thoughts on the podium? I know you're happy, Mark, as a Ferrari boy. Thoughts about Charles taking...
Overall, as Ferrari? Yeah, I'm happy. Charles he did it, man.
Did his thing.
I forget which lap it was, but down the main straight, got DRS on George Russell and just absolutely flew by him. Beautiful move from Charles to bring home the first podium, besides obviously the sprint win from Lewis previously. I think it was in China. Mm-hmm. And it was a great result. Obviously, we saw Oscar bring out the W and Max rounded out in second. Obviously, you probably have some things to say about that, but we'll go about that later on in the episode. But yeah, it was a good race, obviously compared to some of the past ones we had. And I mean, I'm happy. Obviously Lewis was not the greatest. He ended in 7th, so obviously he brought home points, but wasn't the greatest weekend for Lewis. But I mean, with how I'm seeing Charles and how the turnaround he's been making, hopefully he and Lewis can turn this thing around and maybe bring Ferrari back into the Constructors' Championship. But it's still early, so I'm just going to see how it goes. And Ivan.
Happy for Charles and Ferrari. As a person Ferrari's not my favorite team, but if you watch Formula One, you got some place in your heart for Ferrari. So I was happy to see them on the podium. The best two teams seem to be, well, I guess two teams seem to be Team Max and then McLaren's, because I'm not going to say Red Bull right now because it's literally Max keeping that team at the front right now. Ferrari seems to be making strides. That new floor seems to be working. It's moving them in the right direction. You got to wonder for the constructors if it's a little too late. But, I mean, there's still plenty of season left to come. I do think Oscar's going to have another DNF. Lando's probably going to have another DNF. Max is probably going to have a DNF at some point this season. So you do have a little bit of time to catch up. But you got to keep this momentum rolling because you can't take another 8th and 9th place finish for Ferrari next week. Or I guess in 2 weeks, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll get into that first lap because that's where most of the action was. The first turn, obviously, was where the controversy was.
Mm-hmm.
Max had a very bad start. I won't say very bad start, but he did not have a good start. Some of his starts in the Red Bull this season have been kind of slow. I don't know what it is. Max is actually known for his great starts, and this season there's been a couple where, he's got off to a slow start. Oscar had a great start. The jump he had off the line when lights went out was nuts. I mean, he was practically wheel to wheel with Max. I mean, halfway to the first turn, and they go into the first turn, and that's where the action happened. All right, I'll get into it. Screw it. We'll get into it this quick.
Go ahead.
Because here's my issue with the penalty that Max ended up taking because of those actions. They said he went off the track, gaining lasting advantage. When I first watched it live, I said, all right, it didn't look like he was ever making that turn. He was never making that corner. He did what he could, went off the road, gained the advantage. The safety car came out before they even really had time to strategize if they should just go ahead and give the position back or if he was forced off the track and it's something they could argue. Safety car came out. Before the safety car even came back in and ended, the stewards already made the decision, boom, 5-second penalty. Now, the issue I have with this penalty isn't because, he went off the track and gained an advantage. The issue I have is going back and you look at the pictures and you look at the onboards and you look at the track. Max was never making that corner, but neither was Oscar. And when you look at races like Mexico of last year, granted, Max's was probably a little more aggressive in Mexico than Oscar's was, but it was the same move. They went into a deep corner on turn 1 and forced Lando off the track back in Mexico of 2024. Oscar did the same thing. Neither one of them were making that corner. They both, and kudos to Oscar because Oscar, Max has had his off the track bits that he back with Lewis in 2021. Last year with George Russell. He never really argues with Charles Leclerc because he loves that guy. But I mean, he's had it with Lando for the last 2 years. Oscar hasn't said anything about Max. All he said is, I love the car that I'm driving right now, and I'm glad I'm doing what I'm doing. Kudos to him. He's racing hard, and he put up a good fight against Max. I've been wanting to see Oscar versus Max. We got our first little taste. It's not going to be the end of it. There's still a very long season to go. Yeah. We're only 5 races in. The problem I have is that when you look at races like Mexico of 2024, or even going back to Abu Dhabi, or was it Abu Dhabi 2021? Maybe not. It's another race in 2021 where Max did the same thing. Max was the one penalized for forcing a driver off the track. Yeah. When you look at those onboards and stuff, there wasn't a whole lot of room for that Oscar gave Max. Yep. Should it have been a penalty on either or? I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it could have just been there was an incident, maybe give up the gap. You know what I mean? We've seen that. The stewards make those decisions before. Give up the gap. If they were to swap places, I don't think Max would have ever caught Oscar. So I like Red Bull's decision to, okay, let's serve the penalty and see if we can catch up. In my mind, I didn't think we were ever going to catch up. I think Max needed to build at least a 2 or 3 second more, at least a 2 second more lead into what he had when he finally pitted, because he still came out just behind Oscar, and that was the end of it when it came to first and second. He was never catching him. It's just the inconsistency for me. The FIA, we know, all the homies hate the FIA.
Yeah.
Can't stand them. And then it's just the inconsistency. There's not a set group of stewards for each race or even for the season. Every steward is different. I'll say it. There's bias in some, and there's a lot of people who've pointed out the FIA will allow certain drivers to say certain things and do certain things, and penalize others for doing similar things. I'm not saying just Max, because there's the whole British bias against Max. I won't even get into that because it is what it is. Max does his thing to defend himself on that, but it's the inconsistency where when you look at moments like happened in turn 1 for this race, Max was the one penalized before, and then somehow he was still penalized this time. So I don't know. I mean, I know y'all got y'all's thoughts on it. Maybe I'm a little bit biased in my thoughts as a Max fan, and I'm not saying there couldn't have been some kind of
Yeah.
I just think even when the report came out, it was like, oh, normally that's a 10-second penalty, but because it was turn 1 or whatever, there was no, it's only going to be a 5-second penalty. It's like, where is the thought process coming from in that? So, but that's my biggest complaint with it. I know Max was pissed afterwards. He was fucking pissed.
Yes.
He barely talked in the after race interview. He gave his, hey, thank you to the fans. I'll keep it short. I'm just looking forward to going home and then racing in Miami. Thanks. Barely gave any answers in the press conference afterwards. Barely gave any answers. He didn't want to talk about the penalty. He was just over it. And I don't blame him. Even on the podium, I'm sure y'all saw when Oscar and Charles started to spray the champagne, Max just took a gulp, and then stepped off to the side and let them do their thing until it was time for the picture. So I don't know. I doubt it was hilarious because I mean he was pissed, and rightfully so. I would have probably done the same thing. But Mark, I don't know, man. Like I said, maybe I'm biased, but what are your thoughts on the penalty?
I mean, I don't know. It was definitely it's tough, but I definitely think potentially Oscar probably might have gotten there sooner. But I mean, it was tough. I mean, what happened. He got the penalty. Like I said, everybody hates the FIA. I mean, when I watched it at first, I was definitely like Junior. When I first watched it, I was like, okay, it was like Oscar had the corner, Max, he maybe gained an advantage. But when I saw the pictures afterwards, I was like, that's close. But I mean, to me, like I said, it's tough. You just give the penalty to Max. At the end of the day, it didn't matter all that much. I mean, Max still got P2 out of all that. Like you said, he was never catching Oscar. Oscar went away.
My thing too, not to cut you off,
You're
but
good.
on your point, you give him the penalty. Yeah, he serves it, and he still came out P2. But even if you don't give him the penalty and you just let it run, Oscar was still probably going to catch Max at some point, and pass him. And it might have even given them more of a fight. But I don't know. I'll let you finish. I'm just.
Nah, I mean, I don't really have much else to say. I was like, I told y'all in the group chat, I was gonna let you and Ivan go at this. So I said all I need to say. Ivan, you can go now.
There's one more thing I want you to just say real quick to let everybody behind the curtain. You got to tell him the reaction at the WrestleMania watch party you had. That Junior had when he
so
walked up
Apollo,
to you.
we hosted the WrestleMania at Pitch 25. Great event both nights. So like I'm pretty sure packed house.
Yep.
And I got there. Junior arrived there later, and instantly we started talking about this. And Junior immediately goes on his phone, pulls up the picture, and he's like, "Dude, Oscar wasn't making that corner." I'm like, "Okay." Okay, Junior, let's save this for the pod, man. Like, let's save this for the pod. I was like, whatever you say,
some type
Junior.
of way, I still do, but it is what it is. It happened. I'm looking forward to Miami. Max is looking strong.
Yeah.
But Ivan,
I had to let people behind the curtain with that because that meant I got text messages after he got to the WrestleMania watch party. That's how much we were talking about this. But for me, man, this is the main reason why I've been wanting Oscar and Max to fight. Because if anything, so Oscar, but Charles and Max respect each other so much, you're not going to see much there. I feel like Oscar has a little bit of Hamilton in him, in that he's gonna try to use whatever you want to do against you. And I think he knew in his head, if I beat him off the line, Max is not gonna make this first corner. And he's gonna make sure I probably don't try to either. So he's probably thinking, all right, if I can be ahead at the apex, which that's the biggest thing where I think Max is kind of a victim of his own driving. this whole leading at the apex runoff stuff is literally from the Verstappen playbook that they've had to make rules
I was literally
because
gonna
he is such an aggressive driver to use against him. And Oscar already knows this going into turn one. So he's like, shoot, I just got to lead in the first corner then. All right, I am not going to make this corner at all. But if I don't leave any space.
But did he lead at the
I was
apex?
just gonna
That's
say
the
last
thing.
year in Austin, we saw the same thing happen between him and Lando. Max went ahead at the apex, pushed Lando off. Lando went ahead, got the lead, but then got served the penalty, which helped Max in the end. And that was like in the middle of the championship race.
Yeah.
That was in
Here's
2024.
my thing, though. We didn't hear about the 5-second penalty until almost the end of the race. The stewards made that decision against Max yesterday.
Yeah.
Like that. Stewards never make a decision that fucking
That's
fast.
true. That's
Yeah.
true.
The safety car hadn't even come in because there's no passing under a safety car. So it's not like they could have given up the position even if they wanted to. They had to wait for the safety car, and then, but before the safety car was even in, it was only out for like what 3-4
No,
laps.
I remember it vividly. They were coming around that last corner. Max took off and got like a little bit of a gap between him and Oscar. Verstappen's got a 5-second penalty. They weren't even at the start-finish line yet.
They didn't even. That's what I'm saying.
They
Like,
were not there yet at all.
that's my biggest complaint is the penalty is what it is. Kind of the same mentality as Max. I think it was kind of bullshit. Sometimes you gotta let it play out and then maybe cut the gap. Let them fight. All the FIA talks about is Mohammed bin talks about, I want to see more fighting. The president of F1 talks about we need to change these regulations and this regulation to make more fighting. Let them fight.
I think that, not to cut you off, but also I think back to Las Vegas 2023. Charles and Max are fighting off the line. Max literally does pretty much what Oscar just did here to Charles, and Charles says, we must look at this now. This must be taken care of. And eventually Max did get a 5-second penalty because of that, and because he was in that Red Bull in 2023, he got to run off, and that 5-second penalty really didn't hurt him. I feel like that's exactly what he was trying to go. Well, at least Red Bull. I feel like that's the main reason Red Bull didn't tell him give the spot back, because they had thought back probably to Vegas and saying,
and they came out and said it. They were hoping that they could build a big enough gap that when they finally pit, it would offset and they could still come out either right behind Oscar or just ahead of him. And when he was on his way out of the pits after serving the penalty and changing to I think he changed the medium tires after that, or no, he changed to the hards.
Yeah.
Oscar was already passing the pits, and Oscar had already pit before, so there was no catching him.
Yeah.
I think he needed, like I said, another 2 seconds maybe.
It didn't
on
help.
his gap.
It didn't help that the pit stop was not. Jonathan Wheatley's got to be smiling every week at that Kick Sauber team this week
And
so far.
the thing is that it wasn't even incredibly slow, but it wasn't incredibly fast either.
No.
I think it was the 5 seconds, and I think the pit stop was still like I think it was like 2.5, 2.5.
I made sure to see this before we came in. It was 8.3 total with the 5-second penalty.
So 3.3.
Yeah, so
I
they
mean,
had
even a 3-second pit stop is slow.
Yeah, that's for F1 standards. They're normally around 1.9 to like 2.7 if you're being slowish. But a 3-second stop that really hurt Max in the end of it. And I know you talked about the 10-second penalty possibility. I feel like that's another thing kind of with Max too that kind of started this was because Max is so aggressive on lap ones, they've kind of been like, look, whatever happens in turn one, we're just going to turn our eyes away and hope whatever happens. That's where I can agree with you on the Max penalty, like coming so fast, because it kind of seemed like they were like, okay, Max got in front. Max was ahead barely at the next corner, but it's kind of like that turn one in Vegas, like I was talking about. The next corner leads into the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. And I forgot where I saw this at, but somebody mentioned Max tends to do this only on left-handed turn ones, which I never even thought about that
Vegas.
stat. He loves to do it on left-hand turn ones is because he knows he has the runoff to be able to go ahead of you still, which kudos to him. That's knowing your playbook, knowing the rule book and everything. But like I said, I feel like a bunch of the Verstappen moves that happened to him in the past came back to bite him a little bit. But that's the main reason why I want, and like you said, we want to see him and Oscar fight, because I texted this in the group earlier this week. Max gonna get his lick back. If you don't think that, think that's the end of it,
I saw somebody on Twitter say that they said, because if you look too, as soon as Max was at the stand after parking, in the P2 spot after the race, and the president of the FIA was like right there, and it almost looked like he was like talking mess to him. It looked like he was like trying to scold him, and Max was like kind of looked at him, shook his head, and then walked off because nobody likes.
There was
Ben.
reports that he was talking about the swearing on the radio to him. That's
Yeah.
what some people have been saying, that he mentioned to him about fucking bloody lovely or whatever.
Oh, he goes, oh, that's fucking lovely.
Yeah, and
we went from
yelled at him.
simply lovely to fucking lovely, and I loved it. But even then, like, bro, like, I can't wait for the next vote. Hopefully, Ben gets voted out of there, and I don't care who goes in after him, but it's got to be better than what he's been running the FIA like.
I need Susie Wolf in that spot.
I would love Susie Wolf in that spot.
I need Susie Wolf to be the new president.
Absolutely.
So badly, bro.
Susie, if you hear this, if you ever watch this, we need you.
Yeah, you got to vote here for sure.
Toto, if you watch it, tell her. Let's go, make it happen.
Right, let's make that happen.
But enough on that. Like I said, I won't. What I was saying is that before I get away, with that, somebody said that between the penalty and then Ben talking to him afterwards, they said the way Max was pissed, and even like when Alex Albon was told he was flying home with Max yesterday after the race. He said, "Oh, I'll just go to sleep on that flight then," because he got told that Max lost because of the 5-second penalty. Max was pissed. Everybody saw Max was pissed. It is what it is. But somebody on Twitter said either this is going to drive Max away from the sport faster because he's already talked about leaving probably right after this contract, if not, or it's going to unlock the Mad Max again, and he's just going to be a full-blown terrorist and go on an insane, like, record-breaking run again. And the only thing that's going to stop him from that is Red Bull.
Yeah, like, honestly, I've been seeing people talk about this, and I couldn't agree more. You have slowly, probably since the middle of last year at Miami, slowly been seeing the slow drip of the old Max return, because every great driver,
that 2021, 2022 Max.
If you're in the fastest car, and this is the thing where a lot of people gave Lando a bunch of stuff for, like, saying, Hamilton, you're in the fastest car. It takes a different kind of cat to know you're in the fastest car and know what to do in that car. Lando's seeing that right now, for example. So for Max not to be in the fastest car again, I know a lot of people said he's matured. Everybody matures when you get older. But that doesn't mean the same stuff that happened in the past doesn't happen ever again, though. So I'm waiting on it. Like, Junior and I have been talking about it. And I told you about this last week because I didn't bring it up on accident. Them penalty points, brother. Because this happening now.
He didn't get any penalty points for yesterday's incident. They said it wasn't a safety hazard. It wasn't a safety penalty. It was only, gaining an advantage. There was nothing. So he got no penalty points on him, on his license for that.
Yeah.
He's got until June before I think he loses like 3 points. So we'll see. I don't know. I think with this, it's gonna be tight.
I think those penalty points are, because I know obviously nothing was affected in his last race, but knowing that he has until June to get those penalty points, which pretty much for Oscar, if I were him, I'd be like, oh, so I can push his buttons all the way till June and see how far he's willing to push this. Because if I can make him mad enough to take us both out in the race and get him some penalty points,
I think Oscar's got that fight in him. But I think Oscar better be ready if that's the way he wants to go, because we know how Max can be, for the better or the worse. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think we're gonna see a lot more fighting from them. I think Red Bull is starting to figure something out with the car. I said it like week 1. It's gonna take a few weeks, and Max even said after qualifying, the car really came alive at night out there at that track, because it was a night race. Something's starting to click, I think, with the car, and he's starting to look quicker than he was. I mean, Bahrain was terrible, but Saudi Arabia didn't look bad. So we'll see. We'll see what it's like when we get into Miami, where it's going to be a daytime race in the Florida heat, and we'll see if it stays more consistent. I do want to take a moment though and recognize, give our condolences, but 2, recognize the maturity coming out of Yuki and Pierre Gasly. They were the reason we had the safety car and the turn 1. Both of them, I mean, they came up together. They've been best friends coming up through the F1 ranks. And, they went into, what was it, like turn 4 or 5?
Yeah.
And they just got a little too close. They touched, and both of them went into the wall. I thought for a second there Yuki was going to keep going, but when they called him into the pits and they checked out the car, it was just a little too much damage to the suspension, I think, for him to keep going, and he ended up having to retire as well. Gasly took the brunt of that blow and went into the wall pretty hard, but they were both okay, luckily, and they were both really mature. I think I thought in their interviews after the race, neither one of them wanted to blame the other. They were both like, "Hey, like we knew what we were doing. We were going into that turn. We were both trying to make a move. There just wasn't enough space. We touched. It happened. It was an incident on the race,
Yeah.
I know we're all Yuki supporters here. He had a great qualifying. He is starting to really look comfortable in that Red Bull. I mean, through all 3 practices, he was like right there behind Max. And then in qualifying, like I said, he had a pretty good qualifying. Gasly's driving the hell out of that Alpine right now.
Yes, he is.
And it was the same 10 that moved into Q3 as in Bahrain, and Gasly's right up there with the best of them. So, I mean, it sucks because I would have liked to see how they did in the race. They could have thrown a little more, action into the race with Williams right there, and then Hadjar moving up, and then Haas was still trying to fight their way up. It was nice little like midfield battle, and I don't know. I would have liked to see what happened, but I do got to give my tip my hat to them, and especially coming out of like Yuki and Pierre, where in the past they've taken some of those hits really badly and been pretty vulgar and vocal about it afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, that respect. Like, I mean, because it was like both of them were trying to get in the corner. There just wasn't any space, and the fact that afterwards, they were just so cool with each other. It's, like you said, from what we've seen in the past. So it was really cool, like you said, and like I mentioned last week when Yuki had the good at was it Bahrain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he finished in points. He finished.
Like I said, if Red
P9 or
Bull
P10 last.
could keep it up, like you've been saying, and him and Max could keep it into the points, we never know what could happen. Fortunately, wasn't good for Yuki this week. So, I mean, this upcoming, not this upcoming week, but, when we get into Miami, don't know what could happen. Day race, like you said. If Yuki can keep it not in the wall and Max could get a good result, I could see it being good for Red Bull. But moving on to Gasly, obviously, he's been driving the hell out of that Alpine. I don't know why, but there's certain times where he just turns into Prime Ayrton Senna in that Alpine for no reason, and it just pops off. But do we think Jack Doohan stays? Do we think? Because you said it last week with how good he's been doing.
I think he merits staying. I don't think he gets the opportunity to, though.
I
don't think he gets the chance, because I honestly think he is only one more accident away probably from being out.
Yeah.
And it's not, well, one of them was of his own doing, but the other one in the rain-soaked race in his very first F1 race, you really can't blame him. But I don't think he stays the whole year. And honestly, unless he gets a podium, probably within the next 3 or 4 races, it's not going to happen. I just think, especially because of finances, you got a lot of Argentinian sponsorship on that Alpine car that doesn't have an Argentinian driver in either one of the seats right now. So I know they're going to be pretty upset about that. They're going to want that return on investment. You can't lose that money for the team, because as Haas has learned in the past, if you mess up with sponsorship, it can mess up your whole season and mess up 2 seasons down the road too. So yeah, I don't think Jack makes it. I do, like Junior said and Mark said both, kudos to Pierre. I think for him, he's showing again why he is one of the best of the rest. Like, I'm a big Carlos Sainz fan. I put him and Pierre like there and next to each other. They're of the same caliber when you actually give them a car that can be in the points, they will get there. And Pierre just being there at Red Bull, he's been down that road before. I know Yuki's his friend, but also, if you're going to say something bad about someone that just got to Red Bull, he knows how Red Bull is just going to yank you out of there at any second. So he knows I really can't say nothing even if it is on my mind, because I'm not trying to mess up this seat. I lost this seat already, so I'm not trying to have my boy lose the seat that he's been working 5 years to get at. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Pierre really showed a lot of maturity this weekend, because I know a lot of other drivers we've seen in the past. Sebastian Vettel. I won't name the driver because Max has a lot of history with this guy too. But the torpedo, whenever he took out Vettel in one of the races, and then 2 races later, all of a sudden Max Verstappen gets an opportunity in the car because a former Red Bull driver is having problems with a current Red Bull driver. So he knows how that team works. He knows they're cutthroat. If anybody messes with the family at Red Bull, they're going to make sure they take you out. So yeah, kudos to both of them. Yuki again showing maturity. Goes to show you all that stuff that Marco and them were saying about he's immature, he's not ready. You haven't heard a peep immature wise from Yuki since he got the seat. So yeah, kudos to both. And yeah, Ale Blues with this Alpine team, because if they can get a second driver that's a lot more consistent, if Doohan can get there, great. Honestly, it just needs help because as you saw with Williams, which we're going to talk about in a few, if you have 2 good drivers, you can do a lot more than just having that one driver try to do miracle work.
Yeah. And on that point, real quick, I'll say I did see a report today that Alpine is already conflicted on what they want to do with Colapinto and Doohan. So it's already on their mind.
Yep.
It's going to take one bad weekend from Jack at that 6 race mark, which is Miami. And I don't know. We'll see. I mean, like I said, if they're already conflicted, I feel like the swap is coming soon. Not to say Duhan's been doing terrible, but maybe he's not doing as great as they want him to, considering where Pierre's been the last 2 weekends.
Yeah.
On the rookies, though, I don't think Doohan is the only one that's not going to finish the season in his seat. Liam Lawson has not been doing well. He had another 10-second penalty. I saw some, shots and clips on it, and it was kind of another controversial penalty that came out of Jeddah. Regardless of that, I still think he hasn't had a good weekend yet, whether in Red Bull or VCarb, and it's not looking good for Liam Lawson at all. I don't know who they would put in that second seat because I don't know if they have another driver that they're ready to move up from F2 or anywhere out yet. Was it Iwasa, I think is his last name?
Yeah, Iwasa.
He would be the only one that I could see them making the swap for. But I think by summer break, if Liam hasn't figured out something, considering Hadjar is finishing in the points like he did this past weekend, I think Liam's going to be looking at the exit door really quick.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, because we all been like silently cheering for Liam. I mean, we've dunked on him a little bit, especially with all the Checo stuff for me in the past. But afterwards, I said I was like, man, I'm cheering for Liam. But it's the same situation where he didn't put himself in a good situation with like we said, he just seemed too cocky, and now he's not walking the walk. He hasn't been walking the walk, and it's just been tough. I don't think it'll happen sooner than later. It could potentially happen. I think they'll give him a few more races.
I think they'll give him a summer break. If being generous, I think summer break is going to be.
If he doesn't perform, he's going to force their hand because you went from the top. Now you're down with Racing Bulls, and you're not showing that you're getting any better.
While your teammate is outperforming you,
the rookie, actual rookie,
actual rookie.
Yeah, You never want to see a driver lose his seat, but Liam's just not been able to put it together a whole weekend. Even when he beats Hadjar in qualifying, he can't beat him in a race for some reason. Something always seems to happen. At Red Bull, you do not have time. Time is something that they do not give you at Red Bull. Red Bull, they give you 4 races, and they hope for the best, and we'll come back to you after 4 races and see what's going on. I had to even look it up. Iwasa is the reserve driver because Yuki was the Red Bull reserve driver for both teams, but obviously he can't do it now because he's at the main team. I was thinking about, do you bring Danny Rick back just to have someone sit there for another race?
I think Danny Rick's done with F1. Unfortunately, that was my dog.
But, yeah, he's done.
I think.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean
it's going to be Iwasa. Yeah,
it's got to be Iwasa, but you can't. You don't want to cut him off short because you've seen him in the past, like in previous seasons, do good, but there's just no way. I don't see him really sustaining the season. I do think we're going to have 2 drivers again, brand new, because there is a reason I think all these teams brought in rookies. It's A, to see if you can obviously bring in a new future for your team, but B, everybody wants to find the next Michael Schumacher, the next Lewis Hamilton, the next whoever's going to be the next world champion. You saw it at McLaren 2 years ago when they pretty much stole Oscar from Alpine, and now all of a sudden he's in the World Drivers' Championship hunt.
And in my eyes, the favorite to win the championship this year.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and that's what every team's going after. So if you're not producing right away, they have shown in this sport. It's not like other sports where they're like, all right, we'll give you till your second year. Honestly, and this is just something that came to mind, Logan Sargent is one of the luckiest people in F1 history that he got that second year to try at least to hold the ship together, but he didn't get his act together. He could not keep that damn car, not on fire pretty much at his point when he was wrecking as much as he was. But yeah, I do think Liam's going to have to leave. Doohan also I think is going to leave, but honestly, at least we could say for the other rookies, I think they'll all stay.
They've been doing good.
Bortoleto may have had to find a different ride home this weekend because of the incident that happened in the race with his manager. But besides that, I think everybody
I saw
else...
Alonso joke. He's like, maybe no dinner for him on the way home.
Exactly.
But we saw some fighting this weekend. I loved it. And I think my favorite, it was a little spat, I would say, between Bortoleto and Alonso.
Yeah.
I think my favorite fight to watch throughout the race was Lewis versus Lando.
Yeah.
We saw Charles and George go at it a little bit. George actually looked slow for the first time this season. Well, I wouldn't say slow. He was still there. But he qualified P3, and I think he finished, P5? Yeah. So it wasn't the best weekend for Dom's boy, George Russell. behind the camera is our George Russell fan, him and Stoney. But yeah, his first, not bad weekend, but his first slow-ish weekend. But the fight of the weekend, for me, fight of the race was Lewis versus Lando. Lando was eventually going to get past Lewis. I think we knew it. But I think it was watching Lewis use his little DRS trick, not once, but twice against Lando and be like, nah, kid. He's like, I still got it in me. I'm going to show you a thing or two. And watching them go back and forth for that, was it like 2 or 3 laps?
Yeah.
It was actually really fun. That's the kind of stuff we want to see in F1. And it was, that's your boy.
Yeah.
So,
I was watching it. I was hyped. Like, Junior texted and I was like, dude, they're going at it. I was like, man, I'd like to see it. But I was like, I knew. I was like, okay, Lando's going to get by eventually. Hopefully for his sake. Because I'm like, dude, you can't let Lewis and this broken down Ferrari, keep beating you.
I don't root for Lewis a lot as a Max Verstappen guy. I respect Lewis, obviously, for who he is and what he's done in the sport. But I was rooting for him there because I just wanted to see how long he could hold Lando back.
Dude, I was surprised how long.
But I was like, dude, we knew Lando was trying to catch up to the podium. He started P10, finished P4.
P4, yeah.
And he was right on Charles there at the end. But that little spat with Lewis, that little fight with Lewis was fun, man.
Yeah, I get it out of the way. Shout out to Lando, man. P10 to P4, it's not easy to do, and he was able to do it.
Yeah, he
got close to Charles at the end. Thank God he didn't do it again and steal another podium. I would have crashed out right now. I'd be crashing out right now. But yeah, shout out to Lando. I still don't understand the hate. Like I said, I understand some of it, but I don't understand full on pitchforks and torches.
The whole sport's rooting against you.
I know
at this point, and it is weird, very, very weird. Like Mark says, and this is very 40% of this is carrying it, but trust me, we understand why it happens sometimes. But to the amount that it happens after every race, it's a little astonishing, to be honest.
Yep.
From last year cheering, almost everybody after he won his first race,
everybody was happy to see him win.
And immediately they just
Lando wins to finally get his first win in Miami. Here we are a year later to the calendar, and I don't know.
Everybody despises him, and I don't understand.
Here's my thing. I think a lot of it has to do with his comments after the race. Even after this race, he was talking about, oh, we don't have the fastest car. Obviously, Red Bull's catching up. You saw how they were in quali. Ferrari's not far behind, and neither is Mercedes. And it just sounds like he's finding excuses, because then you go to his teammate who's like, and they were like, do you agree with that? And he's like, no, we have the fastest car. And he's like, and I'm proving it. I've won 3 times out of the last 5 races, you know? I don't know. Like I said, I think that it's going to take one on-the-track fight and something to go wrong before that animosity within McLaren really builds up. Before we end the episode, though, I have to give a shout-out to my agenda. Williams is back. Agenda is still alive and well. Both Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz, our boy, finished in the points.
P8, P9.
They didn't have a bad race. They actually used their power of friendship to hold back Isaac Hadjar, who wanted to get up higher in the points, but just couldn't get past those two. And they're off to their best start as a team since I think I saw a graphic that F1 posted, since like 2016. They've already scored 25 points this season, and they haven't scored that many in the last like 10 seasons. So something's going right for Williams. I will see once the regulations change how much it carries over in the future. But the culture shifted with James Vowles and Carlos Sainz in there, and Alex held it down. I'm just saying, I called it from week one, and the agenda is still alive and well.
I mean, Carlos, I've been on and off with Carlos. I'm in the mid with Carlos right now in terms of how it's been, because he started 2 places higher, ended up 2 places lower. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He's in the Williams, but Williams has been doing really good. P8, P9's not bad considering where you were the past I don't know how many years.
Yep.
It's been really good for Williams so far. I think Carlos Sainz can definitely step up and get better results for them.
I think so too. I think it's
Yeah.
kind of the same situation Lewis has in Ferrari, where they're on a new team,
Yeah.
a new car, and they're trying to get it. But he's out-qualified Lewis the last 2 weeks. That's
Yeah.
a big FU to
Yeah.
Ferrari,
Yeah.
So with Saudi Arabia done, triple header is over. Oscar's looking like the favorite to win the championship so far. Red Bull still has questions unanswered. Williams is back, and McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes are all in the mix. It's going to be interesting to see where the rest of the season goes. But Miami coming up, we do have a potential watch party happening here in the city of Houston. So if you're in the city and you do follow us, make sure to follow all our socials. The link tree will be down in the bio or in the description for all of the Around the Circuit socials. We push out information, so keep an eye out on that. And from there, hopefully y'all can come watch the Miami Grand Prix with us. Any last thoughts, boys?
Nope.
Great weekend. Looking forward to Miami. Ale Blues, let's go Alpine.
All right. So it could be a turning point for the championships. Until next week, leave your thoughts on the race in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the Apollo HOU account. Like this video. Follow all our socials. And until next week, where we preview Miami, we'll see y'all then. We're out of here. Peace.